Talk Show. Recorded live.
Hello and welcome to Castle of Horror, the show dedicated to horror movies and awesomeness. This week we kick off an epic 4-part discussion of the miniseries version of Stephen King's The Stand. Tonight, Don't Fear the Reaper goes back to its horrific pre-cowbell sketch roots with Part 1, The Plague. Bear in mind, if you haven't seen today's movie, or today's Part 1 of today's movie, we're going to be talking about it from the perspective of horror fans who have, so warning, spoilers ahead. From Denver, Colorado, I'm your host, Jason Henderson, creator of the Alex Van Helsing novels. With me from Austin is Drew Edwards, writer for Rockabilly Online and creator and writer of the long-running comic Halloween Man from Monsterverse Comics. Say hello.
Howdy.
Howdy. And also joining us from Denver, as always, color commentary from attorney Julia Guzman. Say hello.
Hello.
Julia, do you prefer your name to be pronounced Guzman or Guzman?
How long have we been married?
I mean, 21 years, but who's counting? I'm just saying, as a professional person, how you walk up to the microphone and you go, hello.
On the second syllable, but doesn't have to have like a Spanish accent or anything. But this is
as always, color commentary from attorney Julia Guzman. Say hello. Okay.
I didn't realize you were Ricardo Montalban.
Yes.
What? Ricardo? You know what? Ricardo Montalban is actually a distant relative of mine.
Really?
Apparently so. It is one of my last names that I have.
And also that Barbara Carrera, too. So
that's
okay, never mind. I won't do it. I'm sorry. Don't worry.
Anyway, go ahead.
Nobody who would be offended by that listens to the show. So,
right.
According to Wikipedia, The Stand is a 1994 American television miniseries based on the novel of the same name by Stephen King. King also wrote the teleplay, which, honestly, and I love this thing, and I'm just telegraphing that in advance, I like this play, but boy, you can tell. And he has a cameo role in the series. It was directed by Mick Garrison. It stars a bunch of people. But the main ones we meet in night one are Gareth Sinise, Rob Lowe, Molly Ringwald, Adam Stork, Ed Harris, and Miguel Ferrer. And it's hard for me to imagine as I work my way through this whole miniseries that there are so many more cast members that we do not even meet in Part 1, in the ostensible Act 1 of this movie. But basically, we get our main innermost characters. It originally aired on ABC starting on May 8th, 1994. So, let's get our opening thoughts. We're going to go Drew, Julia, and then I'll come up with something to say. Drew, we have been drawn back to the world of Stephen King. What say you, sir?
This was a big deal when it was first on TV. I remember everybody anticipating this, and it does have, for a TV movie in the mid-'90s, it does have an impressive, and maybe not impressive, but a recognizable cast of actors. And I have to say, I'm trying to just review Part 1 and not the whole thing right now. I do find this chapter to be the least interesting part of the whole thing. Yeah, but it is entertaining. Like it's like an hour or so long. It's an entertaining view. It never quite escapes being a TV movie from the mid-'90s. Like I wish it was a little bit more stylish. I think that if it had somebody with a little bit more of a visual pop behind the thing, I think it would probably stand the test of time a little better. But having said that, it is a very, very entertaining movie. Love the fact that it's got cameos from Kathy Bates and Joe Bob Briggs. That's really awesome. I feel like if there's any real failing of the movie, I think a lot of the sort of secondary actors are pretty bad in this. And I will get more into that, I guess, later. But like the bit characters don't quite measure up. I guess they spend all their money getting Gary Sinise. I don't know. But it's a fun flick. I like I said, I think I said this over email. It's a breezy viewing, and that would be my best description of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Julia, what are your thoughts? Or I should say, Julia.
Well, I have seen The Stand at least twice, I think, or maybe not the whole thing, but a lot of it twice. And so
You've
this
really
is my
seen
third.
this movie twice? This miniseries? You've seen the whole thing twice?
Well, I'm saying I don't remember if I saw the entire, but I saw it when it first came out, and then I saw it a few years ago. So, and then I'm seeing it now, and I always kind of forget most of it. So I will see how it goes this time. But I like this first chapter because it's introducing everyone. It's a true story, and it's kind of interesting. It's really sad. I mean, it's just God seeing everyone just dying all over the place. It's really, and then there's the scene that really gets to me. Now, I will say, I cry easily in movies, and I didn't cry in this, so it's not that sad, but it's a little sad that, when Kathy Bates is doing her radio show, and she's, narrating as the Marines or whoever it is that come in, and then they shoot her on air, and Molly Ringwald's just like, oh, my God, what's happening? It's really scary, to think that could actually, all that stuff could actually happen, and does happen in a lot of countries, not the plague part so much right now, but the,
martial
the military
law.
just like shooting random people for no reason. So I think it's all an interesting character study. It's an interesting it's kind of a sociological study. I love Rob Lowe. I think he's awesome, and it's there's a lot of neat stuff there. So I have more to say, but I'll hold on to it.
That's wonderful, and both of you sort of have kind of keyed in on some major themes of this miniseries, because I really do think it's an amazing work, and Drew hit on something that I think is going on here. There are like two flavors of a Stephen King movie out there in the universe. There are the stylish Stephen King movies that are, basically works of art that are based on Stephen King novels, things like De Palma's Carrie or Kubrick's The Shining. But they are often not very slavish to the book. And then there are sort of just movie of the week style movies, even the ones in the theaters that really just seem to be, you found a director and he decided to film an almost perfect synopsis of what happens in the book. And those, I find, are often way less artistic and way less valuable as art. And yet at the same time, I have a genuine fondness for them because they feel like some strange, distilled version of Stephen King just sort of slapped up on the screen. So that I have a fondness for TV movies based on Stephen King because they're always they have a cheesiness that a lot of reviewers find very hard to forgive, but I kind of just feel is part of.
Well, Lord knows there's a lot of these.
Yes.
I mean, we did it last year, and we've done Salem's Lot and Silver Bullet, and there's more that we could dive into if we decided just to do Stephen King.
Our Stephen King retrospective could be pretty darn extensive, and yeah, Salem's, and we're not even talking about the bizarre sequels to things, like the extra Salem's Lot, but
there's a Salem's Lot remake that also has Rob Lowe, and we've never even done that.
Right, and there's also a remake of Children of the Corn, and but I have a crazy sort of fondness for the feel of TV movies, and so it's fun to relive them. I also think as we go through this movie that this movie is very influenced by Stephen King's influence or experiences from the 60s and the 70s. So, what Julia was talking about, the martial law, the idea of watching the news and suddenly screaming, "Oh my God, what's happening?" is something that Stephen King has written about, feeling, in the 60s and 70s. Anybody who could live through Kent State, where all of a sudden, the National Guard literally shoots to death a bunch of college students for no clear reason, and afterwards people have argued, for the last 50 years on what the hell exactly happened. That sort of feeling of helplessness and watching your country just sort of go insane, was something that he wanted to bring in and go, let's just twist it just a little bit and bring it here. So
there's a supernatural plot that goes into more detail in the later ones, but this first part is essentially a science fiction film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this feels more like Misery, especially with the Kathy Bates you know.
Yeah, it feels like one of those non-supernatural King stories. That,
right.
Or as Drew said, it feels like the kind of science fiction that Michael Crichton used to write. You know, like the Andromeda
it feels
Strain
a lot like Outbreak as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's exactly like Outbreak. Yeah.
It's like Outbreak. There's also, of course, Outbreak came later, and likewise, of course, you know, I couldn't help when we get to Stu's section at the end, where I'm going to reference some other movies that I know you guys were probably thinking of as well. So anyway, but let's go back. Let's go back to the beginning of this, and Drew, you can comment on the TV-ness of the opening segment of Part 1 is basically the lab. We start right out, you know, this military installation where there's a call goes to the security guard at the front gate, and he says, hey, there's been a containment breach. This thing has, you know, and the guy on the other line is very, very panicked. He goes, this thing has broken out. It's some kind of, some sort of chemical agent. Please shut down the whole base, close the gates, shut everybody out. It can't be contained. And
I don't think it's a chemical agent. I think it's a virus.
Yeah, anyway.
It's a biological weapon of some kind.
Yeah, it turns out to be a biological weapon. But the agent itself, not explained very well at all at this point. He's just like, shut everything down.
I don't think he has to, though, because the guard, well, you mean to the audience? Because the guard knows what he's talking about.
That's exactly right. The audience doesn't really know. Gotcha. And to be honest with you, we're never going to know. We know it's a biological weapon. There's nobody's going to, start out.
It appears to work a lot faster than it does at anywhere other point in the movie. Right here, it kills almost instantaneously, whereas
because they said it's mutated, supposedly.
Yeah, I'm willing to buy. I'm willing to buy that.
The initial thing is that it has killed a whole bunch of scientists instantly, and the security guard immediately goes, "Well, I'm not sticking around here. I'm going to go warn my wife and baby." And he gets in his teeny little car. And Steve leaves his post, and he goes and he grabs his wife and his baby, and they crash the gate, which leaves the gate open. And so, and at that point, you're literally wondering as you watch it, so what is going to cause this virus to cross the country? In other words, if this guy immediately accidentally hit a tree and killed himself, would this virus still get out? Because clearly the security measures on this base are not holding up.
Well, it depends on whether the virus is still active once the host is dead. And so,
sure,
because at some point somebody's going to find that car.
Yeah. No, good point. Or if it can be on the wind and just travel around. And I was watching that. You're watching this very, very simple thing where, okay, the security guard doesn't do his thing, and so he gets in a car and he drives off. And that's what inevitably, even as you're watching this, that's going to lead to the death of most of humanity. And I was thinking, well, surely in real life, the death of humanity wouldn't come down to something quite that stupid and simple. And then, and logic tells us, yes, there would be stopgaps and rules and regulations that would keep that from happening. And experience tells you that, no, it could actually be something like that,
Sure.
I mean,
like at Chernobyl.
Chernobyl, I was thinking the Titanic. The Titanic was extraordinarily well designed, but except for against what actually happened to it, which is a giant gash down the upper side. And so the best laid plans, or as Ed Harris says later, things fall apart. There's this Stephen King theme that's going to come up here right now, which is going to be about the randomness, the cruelty, and the indignity of death, because they then start playing, this isn't the cruel part, this is actually kind of awesome, they start playing Blue Oyster Cult, Don't Fear the Reaper, and they show us all the people who have just dropped down dead all through the lab. What do you guys think of this sequence, by the way?
I like that because it's, especially when I first saw it when I was a kid, because at that point using Don't Fear the Reaper in horror films hadn't quite reached it's kind of become a cliche.
Is that so? Has it been used in other?
I've seen it a lot. Right off the top, I'm sure I could sit here and rattle off a bunch if I really wanted to do it. But right off the bat, I can at least think of The Frighteners, which also makes a lot of use of this song. But I can't think of a time where I think it's been better used than right here. It really does set the tone, and it fits perfectly.
It's so beautiful. You know, the filming is so crisp. I mean, this thing looks like TV, right? It's just this naked video, you know, and it's film, but whatever it is, it looks like a TV film, and it's moving through this lab, and it's showing all these people laying there, not looking grainy, not looking like they're on a movie, but looking like they're just being filmed by a handheld camera and fluorescicals. That's fantastic. I love it. I love it for its lack of artifice.
Such a tragic set scene, because the people are like trying, you know, like they're reaching for the door, or they're just kneeled where they were. So some of them seem to have had enough time to try to get away. Others seem to have been knocked down just immediately where they were standing or whatever.
Right.
So
the image.
So this reminds me of like good George Romero when he's on A Game. Like a lot. Honestly, a lot about The Stand in general makes me think of George Romero. But the opening sequence right here has a very sort of Night of the Living Dead kind of. In fact, when I was watching it, you know, my wife kept asking, like, so this is a zombie film? And I was like, no, they're not going to get back up. They're just dead.
Yeah.
But it does very much have that feel to it.
Yeah.
You know,
it does have a zombie moment. And Jason was like, I did not see that coming. I was like, I totally saw it coming. When the guy, the scientist who's like the last scientist standing at this is fast forwarding to when they've been studying Gary Sinise, who has not died even though he's been exposed. And then you've got the guy who, the last scientist standing, who is going to kill Gary Sinise just out of spite because he's not sick. And then they kind of fight, but all Gary Sinise does is knock him out. So he's on the ground. So then Gary Sinise kind of tiptoeing around him, and like you think, oh, he's going to get up, he's going to grab the guy, he's going to grab him. And he doesn't. Gary Sinise leaves the room, and then he starts walking down the hall, and I'm like, oh, he's going to come out that door. And he comes out the door. It's like total like horror movie zombie moment, even though he's not technically a zombie.
Well, he's just kind of gone off his rocker.
Yeah. But there's actually more moments like that at that last section with Stu. So let's save the rest of that for them. But you're totally right. There's a lot that's referencing zombie stuff here. But I like your point, Drew, that it's very much like the original Night of the Living Dead, because one thing that movie really showed was just the sort of the sad weakness of humans. You know, one image that we keep seeing over and over from this lab, because it seems to be where the security camera is for the General Ed Harris, who's in charge of the bioweapons program, is this person who was a fry cook, who apparently has taken sick and just simply knocked over into the hash browns, and so that's so undignified and so just, you know, grody and embarrassing and depressing that it feels very much like the kind of thing that Stephen King was thinking about all the time, is that you can make every plan in the world and you can make the best hash browns in the world, and then all of a sudden you can be dead and in an embarrassing situation and you know, an undignified situation. And that we'll see that over and over again with people whose parents are dying, and it makes you think, like all Stephen King moments, it makes you think about actual life, because, you know, the most vulnerable moments of our lives are often also the most undignified ones, and cool stuff. So
that's definitely true, by the way.
Yeah, no, it is. It absolutely is. You know, and the older you get, the more you watch this stuff, and you see through the metaphor to just, you know, what it is that King is usually commenting on. So he goes to Texas. Immediately we get to Texas, which
California
is
where... subbing for Texas.
Is it so? Ah, okay. And somewhere in the desert.
I don't know for certain, but I know it's at least ain't East Texas because there's mountains.
Right. So that wouldn't be the first. Remember Gary Busey as Buddy Holly actually had like mountains outside his door, and you know, Busey I think was from Dallas or something. But I mean, not Busey, but Buddy Holly.
Colorado, actually. Well, let's see. I know that some of it's in Colorado. Let me see. It says filming locations they'll be in Colorado. They'll be in Utah, lots of Utah, Nevada, Utah. So all that's Utah, I think.
Well, none of that. Definitely, like, it's supposed to be East Texas, and East Texas essentially looks like Louisiana. So that's
yeah.
It's not to my Texas eyes. It's not passing.
Nevertheless, it's mostly pretty flat.
In the trivia, it says that they were going to film in Boulder, and then they passed a law that's out basically, or they kind of let me see exactly.
Boulder passed an anti-gay ordinance.
What?
There was an anti-gay law, and so
an anti-gay right. It says no, not an ordinance. Colorado passed an amendment to their state constitution, which nullified any existing laws protecting the rights of homosexuals, and in protest they moved the protection to Utah. So, that's why it's in Utah.
And this sort of thing's still going on years later.
It keeps going on, yeah, exactly. The makers of The Stand boycotted Colorado because they objected to this anti-gay legislation, and no, it's very much like What's in the News.
I will say this, for its Texas authenticity, this is the point in the movie where we have Joe Bob Briggs.
That's right. So
absolutely.
Driving in a car. So basically, before I'll let you do the whole thing on Joe Bob Briggs, because I know well, we all really admire him, but yeah, you spotted him first. Why we get to Texas is because the security guard drove there, and he drove all the way from wherever he was in California at a lab. He drives all the way to Texas, and by the time he gets to this gas station, he is essentially dying. And what happens is, so these three good old boys are drinking beer in the gas station, and this is the first time that we lay eyes on Gary Sinise as Stu Redman. And he's just another one of the Texans in there, except for that he looks out the window and he sees this car sort of careening towards the gas station, and his first thought is an active thought. He says, shut off the pumps. And the guy he says that to, like a lot of people whom, will react when you shout something imperative to them at a moment of crisis, the guy he says that to goes, what? And so Gary Sinise has to go over and turn it off himself, which he does in perfect time. That's the first thing that you see Gary Sinise do, and it's perfectly in keeping with a golden rule of screenwriting, which is that when you introduce your hero, you should, within the first couple of pages, have him do something really great. And so that's what he does. He saves the gas station from blowing up. And very quickly, and I want to get to Joe Bob Briggs. Very quickly, very basically, security guard is dying, and he manages to be around and cough all over all these people at the gas station, and then that sets up the appearance of the troops. So, Drew, why don't you take it from there, explaining what goes on and how we managed to meet Joe Bob Briggs?
Well, I mean, Joe Bob Briggs is, John Bloom. I should say John Bloom. I will always call him Joe Bob Briggs because that's how I know him.
Well, his character is Joe Bob, too, for what it's worth.
Yeah, his character, he's playing Joe Bob. So
yeah.
He's a hapless cop, and he comes to talk to these guys who've come across the diseased man. And he goes to talk to Gary Sinise and the rest of his coworkers, and then quickly you see him driving off, and you have him coughing, which is the implication of which is that he's going to carry the disease forward. Yeah. It's a bit part. I mean, it's a bit part. Anybody could have played that part, but for horror movie fans, and especially people from Texas, the fact that you have this part that takes place in Texas. And then
you're playing a Texas sheriff or whatever he is,
a
Texas cop,
a deputy or whatever he is. That just adds a little bit of extra authenticity, because Texans are very proud of anybody from Texas, and I can't think of any more, iconic B-movie figure outside of fictional characters like Leatherface. Joe Bob Briggs. And when he showed up on screen, like I said, it just bumped up the movie a notch, because I haven't seen this in probably over a decade, so I'd forgotten that he was in this. But
what's amazing to me is he ages remarkably well. John Bloom does, because John Bloom was writing the Joe Bob stuff, I want to say, like in the early 80s. And this is 1994. I mean, he must have been quite young when he started doing Joe Bob, because he doesn't seem to be out of his 30s in this, in this moment. Maybe he's in his 40s. I have no idea. But
no, he could be 40. I mean, he could be
really more.
Yeah.
But
we could be wrong. He could be a really spry 50 here. But
yeah,
I mean, he certainly doesn't look it.
I
would assume this was right around the time he was on Monster Vision on TNT.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's right. He had taken... Anyway, okay, so Joy is reminding us
he was born in 1953, and this movie takes place in
The movie was made in 1994, so
he's
41.
40.
Yeah. So, great, okay. So we've settled that. Anyway, basically, two things happen in this segment. We've met Stu. We know he can be trusted because he's super smart. He also
gets the best line in this whole part, which is country doesn't mean dumb.
Yeah, country don't mean dumb.
I audibly cheered when they said that.
Yeah, that's because the army comes down like the army in Red Dawn. Basically, they just take over all this town because they know that this is where Campion, the security guard, made it, and soldiers come to Stu's door, and they say, and he, when they're talking to him disrespectfully, he says, "Country don't mean dumb," and I love that. Can I just mention that Gary Sinise was not a new actor. He had been around. He wasn't a star per se, but he had been in a major remake of Mice and Men. He was a major TV director. He directed a lot.
It was Lieutenant Dan.
That was after.
Yeah, I love Lieutenant Dan.
That was after this. At this point, Gary Sinise was still a relative unknown, and like I said, he directed a lot of China Beach. But here's what I remember about Stephen King talking about how happy he was with Gary Sinise. This is, again, before Forrest Gump. Stephen King says, he goes, "We got this guy, Gary Sinise, and he's a pro." He goes, "But here's what I like about him. There's a line that he has to say where, where Mother Abigail, who we'll talk about in a bit, says, they're not going to let you live very long, right?" And he says something like, "Yes, ma'am, I reckon maybe I do." And that, he goes, nobody since Gary Cooper has been able to say something like, "Yes, ma'am, I reckon maybe I do," and sound like a normal human being saying it. It's that, the fact that he can carry off with gentle, dignity, that kind of country talk is just really cool. He's just a really gifted actor. Anyway, so basically the Army scoops up Gary Sinise and a whole bunch of other people, and then we're going to cut to other stuff, but we know that bad things are happening now, because if the Army is taking over an entire town. So where we go next is New York City. And what this whole thing is doing, and this doesn't feel like a TV movie, it feels like a Stephen King novel, is the movie is just sort of taking its own sweet time, leisurely introducing one character after another.
I want to say real quick that you say the Army scoops him up, and the Army scoops him up with am I mistaken, or are they wearing just surgical masks at first, or not the Army, but the guys, the scientists, and then eventually
they
have
gas masks or something.
Eventually gas masks, but I almost think they only had surgical masks
at first.
And then they get gas masks.
All I know is it's the dad from Alf, the lead doctor in this thing.
Yes, that's right. Yep. That's right. And when they first appear, the government scientists are clearly, and this is very reflective of actual emergencies. When they first appear, nobody's wearing the kind of emergency gear that they're going to think that they really need later, and they're just wearing sort of lightweight coveralls and surgical masks, and that doesn't. By the end of it, they will be wearing complete hazmat suits, which might have been wise from the beginning. Who knows? But we now jump. Well, first of all,
saying that they all die, I think it would have been wise from the beginning.
Yeah, no. It probably would have been wise not to make this thing. I think that's the. But Stephen King would probably say, "Oh, get real. The human race is going to keep doing shit like this, whether it's wise or not. That it is not in our power to stop ourselves from doing things like this." I don't know. I don't remember where he winds up coming down on the general goodness of the human race, but. The goodness of the human race is not faring too well in this particular episode of this miniseries. We cut immediately to the Army. We meet Ed Harris, who is a general in charge of bioweapons. He has, security cameras that look on all the dead people at the lab. He's controlling the military response and trying to stamp it out, but he already is feeling like maybe they're in some real trouble. And there's not really much to say about Ed. Ed Harris is perfectly fine, but
this is the sort of role that Ed Harris can sleepwalk his way through.
Yeah, exactly. Was it a good Ed?
He kind of does. I really don't feel like he's very exciting in this movie, and I usually really like him, even when he's at the point when he's given up all hope and decides to end it all.
It's a glorified cameo.
Meh.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not even credited. He's not listed in the credits for this
role.
Right? That's right. I have no idea what the deal is. Yeah, it is.
Maybe because he watched himself and went, no.
I don't know. Maybe it has something to do with how you get paid. Who knows? Of course, that's the same thing with Kathy Bates, also not credited. These small star turns are just thrown in.
Although I feel like Kathy Bates really, really kind of brings it in her part.
You believe her. You absolutely believe her.
Oh, yeah, she totally does. She's awesome.
But with Ed Harris, his Stephen King connection, we saw him as the snooty brother in Creepshow.
But he's also in Needful Things.
Aha. All right. Well, there you go.
So he's got a couple of Stephen Kings under his belt.
Yeah, so, he's a sort of logical person to call. And he also, as you point out, he's instantly believable as a military man. He's not really selling me on the fact that he's going crazy in his storyline. I don't think we'll return to his storyline because it's not really much there. Suffice to say, he slowly goes crazy with the guilt and eventually he
commits suicide.
Yeah.
I don't think it's not like I said, he's not the most important character. He's there to kind of push the military angle to its end. So,
what is he there for? Why are we spending time with this character? That's what I can't quite.
I think it's to give the military. I think it's to give the military aspect of this a face.
Yeah, I guess that's right.
And I'm sure in the novel, this is the sort of thing that would get expanded upon a lot. But, I don't find anything like, it's not the best thing I've ever seen Ed Harris do. And in fact, I've seen him do better in other Stephen King movies. But I don't think he's terrible here.
You know what the best role to me Ed Harris ever performed was of the director in The Truman Show. He's very interesting. The thing about Ed Harris, he's always very internalized, and so it's hard to get him to do a very big, expressive role. But that one, this sort of strange God person, it played well to Ed Harris's style. I'm not saying he's wrong here. He's in the end, he's just not that interesting. But when you think about it, let's imagine you take these scenes with Ed Harris out. If you take them out, then you're just jumping from scene to scene, introducing these different characters, and you literally have no umbrella, nothing at all to explain what was going on. You have to invent something else.
Well, this is a big ensemble cast, so not everybody's going to be. Honestly, he's not the worst thing in this part. I think Molly Ringwald phones it in way more than he does.
All right, yes.
I don't know.
She's got more to do.
Herself.
Let's go to
Who's
New York,
Judy
and then we'll go to Molly Ringwald. Okay, so next person we meet is in New York City. We meet the singer of that chart-topping song, "Baby, Can You Dig Your Man?"
Oh, God, that character's so annoying.
In 1994, supposedly, "Baby, Can You Dig Your Man" is number 7 with a bullet on the Billboard charts, which just strikes me as truly insane. I mean, okay, it was described in the novel, which was written in the early 70s, and who knows what it would sound like because, it's just mentioned that this guy's a big star and it's the week that the world is coming to an end. But they've recorded a song that sounds, like something, actually it sounds like something that Blue Oyster Cult would have recorded. And it actually makes me begin to wonder when the hell this movie is taking place. Because
well, they discussed. Well, the fact that it's a CD means it's taking place. But they, in the movie, the implication is that it's kind of like an R&B, tune, which definitely still existed in the.
That's true.
In the 90s, because she says you sound black, and he was like, well, that was the point. So
yeah, but he said they play some of it. He sounds like to the extent what she means that he sounds like rock and roll. I really believe because they play some of it. It just doesn't sound
really. You
quite
think Blue Oyster Cult sounds? I think
of them as a rock band.
Credit for more soul than it has, my friend.
That's funny. That's really interesting. I mean, to the extent that we could say the Grateful Dead is rock, this is rock. And
I like certain Blue Oyster Cult songs, but I think of them as kind of mellow.
They are, but that's where rock was in the late 60s and the early 70s. I'm saying that for some reason this character is trapped in 1974. The rest he may have CDs.
1974.
Yeah, I mean he's literally a character lifted right out of the Stephen King novel with no notion that 20 years have passed.
Well, I mean, really, how hip do you think Stephen King is? I mean, that begs the question. Or do you think he really cared? I mean, the fact that he's a rock star is sort of besides the point, other than the fact that it just shows you that if the world started going to shit, even rock stars would have to deal with it.
Isn't that funny? And it's such a wonderful notion. This guy who's such a freaking sad sack that nothing ever goes right for him. He borrows more money because he thinks he's going to have lots more money, and it turns out to be the end of the world. That's brilliant. I mean, that's basically.
Money doesn't really mean much in the end of the world.
It's right. It's a joke that's been turned into something serious, which is something that King often does. We meet this guy.
Also, again, it's very George Romero because the idea that money is now worthless.
Yes, right. And there's all the let's talk about all the New York stuff right now with this guy Larry
and special guest star Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
That's right. So New York, we get to see. I don't know what city is standing in for New York or whatever. It's this teeming metropolis of
New York
crazy
is New York.
people.
New York is actually New York.
Oh, okay. Well, very good. All right. So there's remember Stephen King loves small towns. We know that much. Stephen King is a liberal. We know that much, and he seems to be okay with guns. I'm not really clear on that, but he does not seem to like giant cities. And the way he portrays the behavior of humans in New York City when the world is going to shit shows that he has a deep distrust for city dwellers because they have gone stark raving mad. They're like stealing TVs and they're shooting, the ambulance drivers and it's
rioting up a storm.
Yeah, and it's a picture of madness. But yeah, tell us about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Either one.
We have a apocalyptic monk, I guess, street monk, with who's ringing a bell, telling us how the beast is coming.
Dead.
Yeah, bring out your dead. Bring out your dead. The beast is here. The monster is coming. All sorts of stuff like that, which is, of course, to set up the villain of the piece. But, normally I think I would be opposed to having a recognizable person in a part like this, but I think the fact that he's so tall makes it very striking.
Well, plus he's, was the Airplane before this or after this?
Before.
Oh
Yeah, so
he
was hilarious. He was hilarious in Airplane.
Yeah, so it's such a stark contrast from his.
He was Roger Murdoch in Airplane, and is Kareem's Kareem's character is you called him the monster shouter, right? And he's probably been ringing his bell and shouting that the apocalypse is coming and the Dark Man is coming. The Dark Man is this concept that gets introduced by several people who, in their throes of death, are saying, "Look, there's a dark rider coming. There's a dark man. There's an evil force that is walking," and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar mentions him as well. But you get the impression he's been shouting the same stuff forever. But he turns out to be right. He sees Larry, and he says, "He's coming for you, Larry." He calls him by name. Now, here's my question: is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's character also immune to Captain Trips, which is the name of the flu?
Yeah.
Well, he doesn't get killed by the disease. He gets killed by what little we get of Randall Flagg.
He's wandering the street, and the Dark Man, Randall Flagg, finally appears and gives
Rub-a-dub-dub, thanks for the grub.
Yeah, I love that power.
Well, so Randall Flagg is walking down the street, and then he finds a little fawn or whatever.
So tell us who he is.
And he's the Dark Man. I'll get to that in a second. And so
he's
then
a man with an excellent Mel Gibson mullet, is what he is.
That's what I said. I'm like, he looks just like Mel Gibson. But he's got a dark face and red eyes. Are they red? I can't remember now.
He has red eyes.
Yeah.
So he sees the little fawn and he says, "Rub-a-dub-dub, thanks for the grub," and he kills it with his hand. Just points at it and it falls over dead. And then he hears Kareem, yelling out about the Dark Man's coming, blah, blah, blah. And so he does kind of just feigns like he's having a heart attack, and then Kareem has a heart attack and just kills over. And so you realize how powerful this guy is, and he is the Dark Force. And here's what my theory about him is, that I think that the fact that both Rob Lowe and Gary Sinise, who both are really good hero people in the movie, they both have to kill someone to escape a situation. They both have to shoot someone. I think that is there so that the Dark Man has the potential to recruit so that there is a pull from him, because Gary Sinise does see him in his vision of. Because there's a vision that he has of the what's the
Mother Abigail.
Mother Abigail.
Mother Abigail. So he has a vision. All of them, all the good guys, have visions of Mother Abigail saying, "Come find me," and in her cornfield. And by the way, that cornfield that her house is in, they did it on a sound stage, and they actually shipped in real corn stalks, but by the time the corn stalks got to them, they were all dead.
Oh no.
They had to spend $80,000 more to just make fake corn stalks. But anyway, so everybody has this vision of going and finding her in this house. But Gary Sinise also has the vision of the Dark Man, and I think that's why. I think it's because he's going to have some of that. The temptation will be slight for him, but it's still there. But if you have never done anything bad, I think you don't even probably see him. I wouldn't think. But anyway, there's this dark and the light forces that are. They're calling to everyone who has survived to come and join their team, basically.
Yeah. All right, so Harold and Fran are two more characters we meet in, so there's only two more to talk about, and then the show ends, basically. We meet Harold and Fran, and we meet Nick. Harold and Fran, we can talk about pretty quickly. Fran is a young lady who lives with her dad, and a sort of idyllic lifestyle. Their mom is dead. They miss her very much.
It's like Pretty in Pink. That's exactly the Pretty in Pink.
Yeah, right, exactly. And but they're sort of hanging out in their place in Maine, and there's a neighbor kid named Harold who is in love with Molly Ringwald, and Harold
played by Parker Lewis.
Yes, played by Parker Lewis.
TV's Parker Lewis.
TV's Parker Lewis.
Yeah, TV's Parker Lewis. Yeah, and what's interesting about that guy, this character of Harold, this is a favorite Stephen King type, because he is, and I think he's really, in a way, like a dark mirror of Stephen King, a kind of dark mirror, because he's a dweeb. He's got really bad spots on his face. He's very awkward. He uses ridiculously large vocabulary. And what Stephen King, this is one of the most interesting characters to me in the entire novel, because Harold is a character who has many, many, many opportunities. We don't see yet. All we see, he's briefly introduced here. So this is all I'll say about this, and we'll get more in on him in the later parts. But this guy will have many, many opportunities to save himself and become a better person, because there are many people along the way who see goodness in Harold and see opportunities for him to thrive. But Stephen King has a real feeling in his novels that nerds are their own worst enemy. And I think he's thinking of himself in many ways, because the way he shows Harold here is exactly the way Stephen King describes himself appearing in his book, in his autobiography. So I think, he's just sort of, he's saying aloud the greatest fear of any nerd, which is that, they're your own worst enemy. You're driving away the girls because you're being a total jackass, So, yes, and Molly Ringwald looks good. I mean, it's kind of, Joy, what did you think about seeing Molly Ringwald here? I don't know if you remember watching it back in the day, but it's not like we had seen a lot of her since the end of the Brat Pack era.
Well, I mean, it's just 1994, so it's not that long after.
About 10 years.
The Brat Pack era. So she looks pretty much exactly the same as she does in the earlier movies, as far as I'm concerned. And she kind of still looks that way now. But I just love seeing her because she is so fun just to see exactly the same character, just kind of like I said, her single dad, and she's dealing with the dweeb. It's almost like an homage to the John Hughes movies, because you've got the person who is the girl lives with her single dad, and then you've got the person who's dealing with the dweeby guy who's got the crush on her, which is 16 Candles. So it's kind of a fun. To me, it was a kick. I got a kick out of that. I thought she did fine. I mean, I think that she just is who she is. I know that Drew, you didn't care for her that much.
No, because I feel like in the John Hughes movies you're talking about, she shows like comedic timing. She emotes. Like, to me, like she comes off like she's just reading her lines here, and maybe she gets better throughout the rest of the miniseries. But I was not particularly compelled, and I do like Molly Ringwald. That's the thing, I like those same movies you're talking about. I have an affinity for them, but I was not especially compared to again, like Kathy Bates and Gary Sinise, and
certainly Gary Sinise.
Like I feel like
she's not bringing anything yet. I mean, there's nothing here yet that
no, she's just a girl. She's just a girl next door right now, and
at least she sells it when she's listening to the radio, and we hear the Kathy Bates section where Kathy Bates plays the DJ who gets killed by the army because she's continuing to broadcast against orders. Her shock and horror that that's what society is coming to does resonate, and that seems pretty well done. But there's not much, and the fact of the matter is, this is a full 2 hours or whatever it is, and we only, each of these characters only gets about 20, 30 minutes of screen time maybe, and so it's tough. But yeah, you do get a feel right away, though, that somebody who is a pretty strong actor is Rob Lowe, who shows up in the next segment as Nick Andros.
Well, this was kind of a comeback vehicle for him, too, because wasn't this relatively like a few years after he had gotten himself into some legal trouble?
Oh, well, yeah, I read about that.
There was some of that, and I think Lowe was making a few sort of thrillers here and there, I remember, and then I remember I was as sort of pleasantly surprised to see Rob Lowe here as I was to see Molly Ringwald, and he plays Nick Andros, a deaf and mute drifter, basically, with a heart of gold. He is literally the nicest human being that Stephen King ever invented. He is wandering through town. We first see him getting the crap beat out of him by some evil thugs in this whatever town he's in, and his getting knocked out does two things. First of all, it sends him to jail because the police pick him up and just bring him to jail so that when he comes around they can find out what he is. But while he's out, he gets the same vision from Mother Abigail that the others do. So, Julia, do you want to describe Mother Abigail in general? Because I know we haven't really described who she is.
Well, I mean, she's just a very kind old lady who is calling to everyone and by name in their visions, basically. She sits in a rocking chair on a porch in a house in the country in the middle of a cornfield and just tells people to come on, bring your friends and come on and see me and whatever the name of the house is, and
and this same vision it's appearing to all these different people. Yeah, everybody's having this vision of Mother Abigail. But they're also having visions of the Dark Man, and she's beginning to say, she's setting up, you need to hurry, people need to come and see me at Hemingford Home, and also there's always the warning that there's something evil out there as well. And Stu, because we know that Stu is going to be the lead, he gets a little more of that information in his vision. He sees, she says that there's something evil in the corn. There's so many wonderful references to Children of the Corn here, in a way. Mm-hmm. Drew, is Randall Flagg he who walks behind the rose?
Well, Randall Flagg, in Stephen King fandom is thought to be a lot of things. Yeah. And, is a very, I know there's some tie. I haven't read any of the Gunslinger novels, but I know there's some ties to that. And, some people have also told me that there's ties to it. I don't really see how, but, I definitely think you may be right with saying that he sees, the evil entity, but from Children of the Corn. And, I think he's Stephen King's version of the devil.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, I guess so.
He even says at one point, pleased to meet you. Have you guessed my name or something?
Does he say that in this episode?
No, I don't think it's in this episode. I think I'm skipping ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have no memory of that. I totally believe it. Here we only see him briefly, and walking the road.
I have to say, they're redoing this, and Matthew McConaughey has been cast as Randall Flagg, and I think that's.
Oh, Randall Flagg? Oh.
Yeah, I think he's going to be great.
Awesome.
I think he'll be fantastic. This Randall Flagg is going to turn out when we get good light on his face. Is going to turn out to be Jamie Sheridan, who, as actors go, is really one of the sweetest actors you've ever seen. He always sort of projects this sort of lovable dad image. I don't remember if he's going to overcome that or not, or play against type or what, but that's what he is. Anyway, so Nick Andros wakes up in jail, and the bad guys who beat him up are soon arrested because he reports them, but it doesn't matter because everybody is starting to die of this damn flu. And by the way, this whole movie is really only covering like 5 or 6 days, It's like from June 20th to June 26th, which is remarkable. I mean, if you think about, what happens in your average week, the idea that the world comes to an end that quickly is amazing. Nick's story winds up that he gets put in charge of the jail by the sheriff because the sheriff has to go home and the sheriff gets sick and dies. And Nick has to watch these people who tormented him, but he has such a sense of duty, of personal duty, that he has to watch them, and he won't leave the jail until they're all dead. This is after the doctors have run off, after society's fallen apart. He's not going to give up that post. And when he finally leaves, one of the guys who beat him up actually tries to kill him, and he defends himself, and he has to shoot that guy, and he wails. He wails pain. He's in the street. He's so upset that he had to kill somebody. He's such a sweet person. It's really an interesting character. Now
I think he's next to Gary Sinise, he's probably the strongest character in the whole thing. I mean, and just the fact that he's deaf and mute, makes him different. It's just so different from
it's just
anything.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it creates vulnerability for him, but it's also just some interesting business we can watch. The fact that he can't hear, the fact that he has to talk by writing things down, but also that his goodness is so much more amplified by the fact that he's so disadvantaged compared to everybody around him. Now, it's funny because I was thinking about these are the two most kindly characters, is Mother Abigail and Nick Andros. And I don't know. I've heard people say about Mother Abigail that she's sort of a stock Stephen King character, this sort of elderly, wise, magical black person. And I don't know what to make of that. I don't know. All I can do is look at the text in front of me. I like Mother Abigail. I like the fact that she's magical and nice. I mean, I don't know what else to do with.
Well, because you have from the in The Shining, you have.
Dick Halloran. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
You also have the magical giant black guy in The Green Mile. But then again, there's an awful lot of magical people in Stephen King, and there's an awful lot of magical white people. My point is, I don't know how to talk about this particular issue. I know it comes up, but I don't know. I don't have wisdom for it because.
So it's become enough of a trope that people talk about even in non-Stephen King.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Like the one where Will Smith comes out of the mist just to teach Private Ryan to golf. Yes, that happens a lot, and but nevertheless, Nick is a magical handicapped person, which is also something that happens often. I don't know. I think it's probably just that Stephen King keeps coming back to some of these tropes because he probably finds them interesting. They're somehow reflecting something that he wants to talk about. I don't completely know what it is.
I don't think Stephen King is racist. I mean, I've never gotten a sense of that. I mean, if anything, he seems...
they're nice. They're good characters.
Yeah, I mean, he seems contemptuous of ignorant people in his writing. Yeah. So I can't imagine he would have too much tolerance for that. But
and these are the heroes. So my point is, to the extent that somebody might make an argument that these characters are tropes that might ultimately be destructive because they cause people to look at certain groups as other. I don't agree, at least to the extent that it harms the work. I really like Mother Abigail. I wouldn't want to change her into an old Sally Field.
She is played rather broadly, though.
Yeah. Ruby Dee.
I mean, not that there's anything wrong with that, but the actress. You
don't think Ruby Dee could have said, "I'm not going to say that line"? I've checked that. I don't know. That's a good question. You're totally right. Yeah. She is playing. She's playing a 106-year-old, deep country black woman. Sitting on her porch, playing her guitar. You just know this woman makes the best cobbler that there ever was. Anyway, let's see. So that's Nick finally is free. He's free of the bad guys, and he's still alive. And we never see him again, except for that he has one more thought that he needs to follow the call of Mother Abigail, and then that gives us the very last moment of this part, which is that Stu is still stuck in the damn hospital. And this is now a scene that we've seen in a lot of other stuff because, the guy who wakes up in the hospital...
He's actually lucky in a way that last scientist guy wants to kill him, because otherwise he probably would have just been died in there.
He would have gotten out. Yeah, he's left in there, and there's, Dr. Dietz, who is who is actually on Seinfeld as one of Elaine's boyfriends. Dr. Dietz is so angry that Stu is still alive that he comes in And
he calls them a chicken fried piece of crap, which I love. It's a sort of euphemism for somebody from Texas.
Yes. Well, and again, Stephen King's playing here with this notion of that college-educated people look down on what they regard as white trash. Although Stu's country, but he's always, he's this perfect Gary Cooper character. He's wise beyond his education. He's educated beyond those around him. He's going to be a standout character, and he's certainly going to survive this dumbass, flu-ridden scientist who can barely stand up straight and comes in to wave a gun at him. It looks dangerous there for a minute, but Julia's right. He's way luckier that this guy came in to shoot him than if he hadn't.
Well, and he's kind of an idiot. I mean, I guess it's what you're saying about the, the guy who can't shut off the gas pumps quick enough because he can't react. This is again where Stu is just quicker than other people because the guy's pointing a gun at him, and Stu has a remote control for the TV, so he just turns on. And the static startles the other guy, and he looks up at it, and then Stu's able to move toward him.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, what, I mean, I guess that's how it would be. It's like it's just an instinctive reaction that you have to look at where the static's coming from, even though it's going to mean you're going to be screwed.
Yeah, and it works. I mean, and funny, the crazy thing is, funny things like that happen in real life all the time. Sure. There are guys who survived gunfights in World War II. Like one, I remember that this guy walks into what he thinks is an empty little house in somewhere in France, but it turns out there's 4 Nazis sitting there at a table playing cards, all with their weapons. They freeze, he freezes, and then he unfreezes and shoots them all. But it didn't have to go that way. It's like strange things happen, and you can completely never. Stu could have died right here, and actually, boy, that would have been a gutsy move.
We're not quite at Game of Thrones yet.
I mean, that would have been cool. Yeah, if he had or if he had because lately another quote unquote zombie will pop out on the stairs where this other guy is dying and is delirious and reaching towards him. If he had tripped and broken his neck, that would have been a fascinating moment. They do that in the first episode of CSI, actually, because you follow a bunch of characters for the whole episode, but one character that you think is going to be the lead actually winds up dead by the end. But that's a spoiler on the first episode of CSI, so I apologize. So that's the end of the first part.
Well, we didn't talk about Miguel Ferrer.
Miguel Ferrer. Very, very brief on Miguel Ferrer because we're definitely out of time. But Miguel Ferrer is a 2-bit robber, loser, criminal who holds up
possibly
his store. Yeah, and immediately gets arrested. And so he's thrown in jail. At the same time that Nick is leaving a jail in his storyline, Miguel Ferrer is apparently the last American to be arrested while the world is falling apart, and he gets thrown in jail. And we'll pick him up in the next episode because nothing else happens here with him. So going through all of that, the one thing that I would observe the most is, damn, this thing takes its time. I mean, this story just sort of it acts very much like a novel. It's like there's nothing that is so minor that Stephen King can't somehow fit it into the script. We're going to meet everybody. They're going to do all their little bits. He's got 366 minutes to fill, so he has all the time in the world. I like the pace of it.
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, I think it's, like I said, I think it makes it, because it has a slow pace, it gives you time to get to know everyone and figure out, what their story is. Because if you just kind of throw all these characters into a 2-hour movie, it's like, I don't care if Molly Ringwald's dad dies, who gives a crap? But, once you've seen him, relating with her and talking about the kid and whatever, you just feel bad, I don't know, it helps.
Yeah, I don't know how you would do it.
This is Lord of the Rings trilogy, stuff. So this is really kind of the only way they knew to film big thick books like this, as to really give it the time and breathing room it needs, because otherwise you are absolutely right. I mean, The Stand is a huge book. Yeah. And there's no way they could have fit it all into a 2-hour movie.
It'd be impossible. You'd have to really just take just a couple of the characters, and you might have the others just kind of show up in the background and maybe you say a couple of lines, but that would be it. That would be, like it would end up being about Stu and Fran, somehow. Mm-hmm. I mean, thank God they didn't do that. That would be just colossally bad. We should let this be our final thoughts, and then get to our endorsement, because we're gonna be talking about this miniseries for 4 weeks. So any themes we miss out on, we'll have a chance to double back again. Is there anything possible that we have not talked about in this first part?
No, I think we covered it.
I think we have about discussed it. I don't have any other final thoughts, because we're going to be back next week with the second one. Other than, like I said, I like where we're going. I worry because I really loved seeing the world fall apart in this episode, and I don't know what's going to happen when. I don't know if it's going to be a letdown later. So we'll find out soon enough. And Drew, thank you for not spoiling it. I did see it 20 years ago, but I don't remember much of it. So.
I'm watching it one at a time. There was the impulse to just take an afternoon and watch the whole thing. But I think the way to do it is to just watch it one piece at a time and try and take it in as virginal as I possibly can, because Lord knows it's been long enough to where I don't have the fresh memories of it.
Yeah. Julia, any final thoughts?
No, I think I've said everything that I want to say for now.
I guess it should be said that this is on Netflix, so if anybody wants to kind of follow along with us, you certainly can have easy access to it.
That's for sure. Okay. Well, then let's go around and do endorsements. I'm curious what you guys have been reading. Julia, I know you were on vacation, because I also was on vacation. So, but if you have something to endorse, we would love to hear what it is. Drew, lay it on us. Do you have anything to endorse?
Well, with the death of Leonard Nimoy, I have really invested myself in the world of classic Star Trek. I've been watching a lot of the old episodes on Netflix, which they have all 3 seasons on there. They just got rid of the animated series, which sucks, because I would have liked to have watched that. I never have actually seen very much of it. But, I've watched as many of the original cast movies, and I just, such great characters. And, say what you will about, the 1960s-ness of the original. I still think it's the best Star Trek going. And, I made a rather inflammatory Facebook post about a week or so back about how much I think better I think classic Star Trek is over Next Gen, and I'll stand by that on here. It doesn't really get any better than the original cast and the original
better
series.
You mean cheesier.
Oh, there is nothing that is not cheesy about Jean-Luc Picard and Will Riker. That beard alone is cheesier than any line that William Shatner ever uttered.
No, I love classic Trek, but they're very different. I mean, the thing that I loved about The Next Generation was
how dull it is.
I loved how dull it was. That's absolutely damn true. Absolutely true. The movies that tried to I don't know. It wasn't even built for movies. What I loved
I've maintained that First Contact is the only good Next Generation movie.
Right. I mean, let me give you an example. I think you were maybe being sarcastic, but it's really true and hard to explain. What I loved about the Next Generation was that something crazy would happen, crazy, and what they would do is they would just call a big conference, and they'd all go sit around the table and they'd talk about it. I found this extraordinarily comforting in my youth. Because I just
liked Next Generation when I was a kid. I don't think it's aged very well. I feel like the sort of, not only like I do feel like the as characters, Kirk, Spock, and McCoy just have a great, they're a really good superhero team. That's what I always say. Like most superhero movies miss the boat the way that original Star Trek crew is set up. Like that's the way you should do a superhero movie, but or specifically a teen movie. But I feel like the 1960s ofness of it, and maybe it's because I lived through the 80s, and so like the 80s-ness of it just. It makes me groan instead of being endearing. So maybe there's kids who see Next Generation and think the 80s-ness of it is endearing. But I feel like the kitschiness of the original series is charming. Whereas, although I will say this, a lot of my favorite stuff is those original cast movies, which were contemporary of Next Gen. So
I guess that's true more or less. I mean, what can I say? I have a love for both, and I do.
Maybe
really
I'll
love
come back around and be more forgiving of Next Generation, but as of right now, I'm living long and prospering with OG Star Trek.
Okay, so here's my endorsement about that, and this will be my only endorsement of the week is Keith DeCandido, who is a very, very prolific writer of tie-in novels, and has written a lot of Star Trek fiction as well as Buffy fiction and a lot of other, and he's now writing novels based on supernatural. He's where it's at. He has a column on Tour.com where he has done a careful rewatch of classic series just started. So you can get in on the ground floor of that one, but he rewatched the entire Next Generation and the entire Deep Space Nine, and so now he's studying classic Trek. And man, that's some cool reading because he does recaps, he does great commentary. It's really, really expertly done, and I highly recommend it. That's the Tour.com rewatches of the Next Generation. But you may have had something else. Did I step on your other endorsements?
Oh, no, that's it. I've been Star Trekking across the universe. I probably will continue to do so as long as I will say this. You're talking about Deep Space Nine. If it's not the Enterprise, I really don't care. Like that's what I'm saying. Like that's not Star Trek to me. Like it's got to be on the Starship Enterprise.
I'm with you, Julia. Do you have?
Oh my God. Sorry, I got scared by somebody. Speaking of horror movies.
What happened?
A figure appeared in the doorway. Sorry to include you all in my jump scare there.
What did you?
I just thought you were really mad because I was just in Deep Space Nine.
A 13-year-old suddenly appeared in my vision. I was not expecting to be there.
The really funny thing is we don't have a 13-year-old. No.
And then there were.
Right.
Oh my God!
So, okay.
Like my heart is beating so fast right now.
Yeah,
Holy
we're
crap.
So I know.
Go
ahead and.
that was it's a horror movie podcast, so it goes.
Yes.
It goes with the territory.
Right.
So is it my turn?
Yes.
Okay. I know that I already said this on the Facebook, but we got to see Danger Cakes perform live in Denver a couple weeks ago, and just had the greatest time. And I know we've endorsed Danger Cakes and Drew's wife Jamie, and who is also sometimes one of our podcasters. But I just want to say that seeing them again, and this is the second time we've seen them, it's a great show. So if you do get a chance to see them, I highly recommend it.
Well, they're actually playing tomorrow night in Pflugerville, so if any of our Austin for the April Fool's Day dance. So I should have mentioned that. I'm a terrible husband. I will be racked with guilt.
Well, I also caught them in Denver. It was a great show. Really, really great show.
Yeah.
And I'm serious. There were people that we went with who afterwards were like, "This is a new favorite band of mine," and that was wonderful.
Well, they're doing well. I mean, they're a band on the move. I am really legitimately proud of everything that Jamie's accomplished with this band, because Lord knows it's hard to make it in music these days, and they have a pretty good shot. So
very cool. Yeah. All right. I know that we've been going long. I can't believe we've gone this long, but it's all worth talking about. We're going deep, deep, deep into the Stand. So I hope people comment on our Facebook page. That's where we will totally engage with you if you have any kind of comments or questions at all. Those of you joining us from Bleeding Cool, we're very happy that you're here. We should be up on iTunes this week again, and or wherever you choose to listen, Stitcher. I know some of you. We are very happy that you're here. Tell your friends we're doing the Stand, that you're going to start watching it on Netflix and catch up with us and make a thing of it. We would absolutely love to have like 9 times as many people listening to the 4th episode as the first. So this is going to be a really fun series and a new experiment where we've never done something like this before, where we just go, really deep into something like a mini-series. So, okay. Thanks, everybody. Have a fantastic week, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Night.
Night.